Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video, you guys are getting another Thrift to treasure. So I dug into my stash, I pulled out 5 items that I have been needing to flip, and in today's video, I completely transformed them. I hope you enjoy. For project 1, you guys, I found this, I don't even know what it is, like a piece of vintage wood that somebody already had painted, distressed, add a bunch of this really cool hardware all over it. I did not like this little clip though that was on it. I think what they used it for was they had it hanging on a wall and they probably clipped little notes to it or a photo or something like that. So we took that off. And when I took the screw out, it kind of made the wood pop up a bit. So I just took my scissors and kind of scraped it flat. And I'm using Connie from the Painted Photographer. I'm using one of her rice papers. I was very fortunate that she sent me a bunch of her papers and I have been literally dying to use them. So I thought this church was absolutely gorgeous. So I grabbed that and it had a couple or like little hints of like that turquoise in it. So I think it will look perfect. This is the very first time that I've actually used rice paper before. I have used regular tissue decoupage paper, and I know that with rice paper, I think there's like strands of stuff in it to kind of give it a little bit more durability. And when you tear it, it's a little bit more difficult to tear than your standard decoupage paper. But I really love it so far. I like how durable it is. But what I decided to do was basically just tear around the entire image. At first I thought about cutting it, and then I'm like, no, decoupage paper just looks so much better when it's torn and then you decoupage it on. So that is exactly what I'm doing here. Just going around on all the edges, just tearing it. And I like to tear towards me and use my finger to kind of figure out where I want that tear. Like for instance, right here, I did not want to lose the cross on the top of the steeple, so I really had to be careful how I tore that portion of it. After I finished tearing it, I laid it down, and what a perfect fit, you guys. I absolutely love it already. Here's where I got a little nervous because I'm new with working with rice paper. I broke out my liquid patina, which is my go-to decoupage medium, and I'm like, is it going to work with rice paper? I'm going to give her a try. So I am doing exactly what I always do when I use Roycycled's paper. I am doing a starter strip, so I lined everything up. I laid down just a nice even layer, and then I smooth it back, and it worked perfectly. And then I take my brush and I just decoupage right over, work out any wrinkles or air bubbles, and it, like I said, it literally worked so good. So this decoupage medium liquid patina works with rice papers as well. So I probably should have watched one of Connie's videos on how she uses it before I just went for it, but oh well, if it didn't work, I would just start over. So I apply the full coat of liquid patina, smooth everything out, and we're gonna let this dry. And then I have some decorative little jingle bells that I thrifted, and we're gonna add them to just give it a little Christmassy touch. I thought I was taping and I wasn't. So this is what we're using, this little jingle bell. I think these were actual ornaments. I thrifted them when I was at the bins one day. But what I started to do was I actually fed the wire through a tiny hole on that decorative metal. And I'm trying to position it so that I can have 2 of the jingle bells hanging at 2 different lengths. So the other thing that I decided to do is I actually finally found the end of a tiny paintbrush. I fit it right through. There was like a little squiggly, like they took the wire and wrapped it around the paintbrush, and then I just finished that to shorten the bell up a bit. And then I also did it to the other side as well. So What a perfect way. And I like the gauge wire too. It was really easy to manipulate and do that, you know, the rounding or make that little curly cue. So I attached that one. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the second one. And once I apply it, I think just adding these little bells just really elevated this entire project and gave it a real Christmassy feel. For project 2, I grabbed this brass candlestick from the bins. I honestly don't know if it's real brass or not. It looks a little tarnished, so I'm not really sure. But what I decided to do with this is I recently was at the dollar store, grabbed a bunch of these bottle brush trees, and I thought, how cute would a bottle brush be sticking out of this brass candlestick? So for starters, what I'm doing is taking a little bit of my styrofoam that I used in my last video, and I just had some chunks left over, put a little bit of the styrofoam in that hole, and then I'm going to push the bottle brush tree into that. So then I decided I was going to try Fusion's bronze paint. And honestly, you guys, it is a perfect match to this candlestick. And I think it's just going to take the areas of it that look kind of worn, and it's just going to even it all out. So I applied just one even coat of that bronze metallic to the entire piece, and it totally transformed the candlestick. My one tip for you guys, that green foam, when you cut it, it creates a gigantic mess. Before you start painting, I would definitely recommend wiping that all up. It did keep on sticking every time I would set my candlestick down. It kept sticking to my paint, and it definitely made things a little bit more difficult to paint. In my last video, I did this exact same technique, and I think this will work perfect for this as well. When I did pop that bottle brush tree in there, you could still see the green a little bit from the foam. So I am using a little bit of a white swan and then some paint frosting. And what the paint frosting does, it's from DIY, it actually thickens up your paint and it kind of creates like a frosting. And then it hardens and you can create like a texture with it. So what I am doing is mixing it up. You want to let it sit for a bit so that it does thicken up. And what I'm doing then is applying it to the very top of that candlestick to hide that green. And then I take the little, I'm actually using a transfer stick. I just take the transfer stick and I add some texture to make it look like snow. And I decided against that other bottle brush tree and chose this one instead. The last thing I decided to do was break out some of my ribbon, and I thought this black and white buffalo check would be perfect on here, and I'm just tying it in a double knot, and then on each of the corners I always just do like a corner cut on each of the ends, and I think it was the perfect finishing touch. For project 3, you guys know how much I love vintage books, so I went into my stash, grabbed another one. I also pulled out this vintage hymnal that I had thrifted, and we're going to pull a page out of there as well. Now, I am using another one of Connie's beautiful rice papers, and this one actually came as a 4-up, and I had cut it in half and gave 2 to my mom to use, so I will have 2 for myself. For starters, I'm taking the hymnal page and I am going to tear it towards me. I just want to rip the edges, make it look very natural. And I'm eyeing up where, what I want on the cover to show. I do want to just upfront apologize, guys. If this book is worth money, I am sorry. I just thrift these and I grab them. The colors always speak to me. I don't really do a lot of investigating. I probably should. But honestly, I don't even know where I would sell it or who would want to buy the book, even if I discovered it was worth like $50. So anyway, so what I'm doing here is, like I said, randomly tearing this page, and then we're going to decoupage the hymnal page to the front, and then we're also going to do the same with the rice paper. I'm going to just cut it in half, save the other image for another project. And then again, like I said, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to tear the edges of this entire piece of rice paper, and then it's going to be ready to decoupage. Because I had such great success with the liquid patina, we're using it again. And really the key here, you guys, is always do a starter strip like this. Lay your piece of paper down where you want it and then pull back the top and then lay down that liquid patina. Lay down your paper, smooth it out, and then work your way down. It gives you better control to ensure that you're getting your paper placed where you want. And then it also helps you eliminate a lot of your wrinkles and air bubbles. So I find that since I've been doing that, it works wonders. Now it's time to add the actual rice paper. I just add a tad more liquid patina in the area that I'm going to lay the rice paper, and then I'm just going to lay it down. Now this is a little piece. If I was going to be working with a much bigger piece, again, I would probably start at the top and work my way down like I did with the hymnal paper. To finish this project, all we're going to do is add a bit of twine. I picked this up at Walmart. It's just a little chunkier twine, and I wrap it around 3 times, tie it in a double knot, and we're going to call it a day. I really thought about adding some holiday ribbon or, just something else decorative. But I think really with the look of the book and this beautiful church, simple is better for this one. For project 4, I am about rescuing frames lately. I don't know what it is. I see a big old chunky frame and it ends up in my cart. And this one caught my eye because of all that beautiful detail. I just loved it. So I had some extra scrap wood and I had this piece of wood already pre-cut. I was going to use it a couple weeks ago and I never could find anything that would fit perfectly in here. So today we are going to use Connie's rice paper and we're going to use that snowman that I just showed you. It's absolutely gorgeous and I think we can completely transform the look of this frame with a little paint and a little wax. For starters, I am going to paint the board white swan and I really want my paper to pop. My initial vision, you guys, I was just going to use the snowman. And then as I was painting and I got brainstorming a little bit more, my vision definitely changed. So I probably did not need to necessarily paint the board white, but I'm glad I did. And then I started working on the frame, and I am going to apply 2 even coats of white swan to the entire frame, let it dry very thoroughly, and then we're going to come back and we are going to really make that detail pop. Well, that is drying. What I decided to do is when I was painting this board, I decided to add some of the hymnal paper. I tore out 4 different pieces, and I'm just going to randomly tear the edges of all 4 pieces and kind of stack them on like in each of the 4 quadrants to really cover up a majority of the white. And then I'm going to tear the snowman, the edges around the snowman as well, and then apply him onto the hymnal paper. Just like you guys guessed, I am decoupaging the hymnal paper to the board, and I am working, like I said, in each quadrant. I'm starting with the first one, applying a nice even layer of decoupage, laying that down, and then working my way around and doing that for all 4 corners. My next step is I'm going to tear the snowman. Now this rice paper is definitely a lot more durable because of the fibers that are in there. It makes tearing a little bit more challenging, but I still love the way this all looks. So once I get it completely torn, I'm going to then apply it to the actual hymnal paper. Now the hymnal paper is still wet. I am going to go ahead and just apply a really nice extra layer of the liquid patina, and I am going to lay this down. Now the one thing, like I was mentioning earlier, that this is a much more durable, strong paper, that when you lay it down, there isn't a lot of wrinkles because I think those fibers really prevent that. So I'm just going to smooth it out, and really what you have to be concerned about, I think more so, is the air bubbles. So I am just smoothing out all the air bubbles, and I love already how this is looking. But what we're going to do now is set this aside, let it dry, and then we're going to go back now to the frame and we're going to do a bit of wet distressing. When you wet distress, all you really need is an old rig that is damp but not overly saturated. And the reason I use DIY paint today too is that with DIY paint, it's so easy to wet distress because it is a clay-based paint. The paint itself can be reactivated with water up until you seal it. Now, I want to mention that all the products that I'm using in today's video, you can find on my website at www.sonnetsgardenblooms.com. I now carry the full Fusion line and the full DIY paint line. So basically all your DIY needs you can order all in one location. Now back to the video here. So what I am doing when I wet distress is I just try to hit all the areas that are raised, and I just randomly rub on all those areas just until a little bit of the detail really pops through. I let that dry, and now it's time to seal my project. And I am using DIY's Big Top, definitely one of my go-to top coats. I'm applying just a really nice even layer over the entire piece. I'll let that dry, and then we're going to go ahead and really make that detail pop even further. Because I used the vintage hymnal papers, I broke out the Golden Rule gilding wax. I thought it would be the perfect addition to this beautiful detail. So what I'm doing is applying just a nice even layer of the Golden Rule or that gilding wax to all that detail, and then I'm going to take a piece of paper towel, wipe away the excess. It really gets into all that detail, makes it have that vintage look, really helps that detail pop. and I think it was the perfect addition to tie that vintage paper in with this vintage frame. Lastly, I decided to add a bit of that gilding wax to the very edge of the paper. Initially, I was just going to do right on the edge I thought the white made it too vibrant. And then I decided to bring it right to the snowman paper as well. So I just blended it just ever so lightly. I didn't apply a lot. I just kind of lightly, with a very fine hand, just rubbed it all over the paper and just, like I said, blended it into that hymnal paper. And that just made the whole piece pop. I put the picture in the frame. I want to really just at a glance see if there was any details that I wanted to add. So again, I'm just going around the snowman just a little bit more. Then I take my brad nailer and I actually brad nailed that board into the back of the frame. I just angled it and I did 4 brad nails and it was secure. And I love the transformation of this, you guys. For my 5th and final project, I thrifted this a while ago. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it, but in today's video, I have decided to break out Fusion's Rosewater. I have been seeing so much vintage pink this Christmas or this holiday season, and I thought I am going to add a bit of pink to my booth. So I'm applying 2 even coats of the Rosewater to this, and I am going to let it dry very thoroughly, and then we're going to come back and really make some of the detail of this piece pop. What I'm using next is I am going to use DIY's clear wax and then DIY's dark wax. And I'm going to apply just a nice even layer of the clear wax and then go in with the dark wax. It just gives me a little better control. And I do know that Fusion has a built-in top coat, but I always like to add just a bit of clear wax, again, to better control my colored waxes. Next, I'm going to just take a piece of paper towel and wipe away the excess wax. I just want it to be in all the grooves, crevices, and I think that it just was the perfect addition to this little candle holder. Next, I am not only embracing this little crooked Christmas tree, but I am using hot glue and that little round hole on the top. I am filling that with hot glue. I am also using a little bit of Type Bond. I already applied that to the Christmas tree and to the very edge of the top. I'm holding it in place, and then now it's nice and secure. What did you guys all think? Honestly, Connie over at the Painted Photographer, you guys, she is crazy talented. I felt very fortunate that she sent me those papers. And yes, if you want to get your hands on some, just head on over to her website, www.paintedphotographer or thepaintedphotographer.com. I probably should have been a little bit more prepared, but you guys will find her. And she has a ton of great papers out there. One little tip for all of you guys that love to do upcycles, you never know what to put in your booths in like January after the holidays. Well, birds, you guys. I would load your booth up with all things birds. Connie has some amazing bird papers, especially cardinals. So I am going to be heading over there and picking up some of those for myself for my winter upcycles. So definitely do that. The other thing too, you guys, I have not been saying to you all, like, oh, here I said y'all, like you'd think I was from the South. Anyway, I have not been telling you guys, if you love my channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you like today's video, hit that thumbs up and let me know in the comments what your favorite item was. And if you guys love my content, share it with a friend. I definitely want my channel to continue to grow and get bigger and better. And I want to thank you all for continuously watching me and supporting my small business. I could not be doing this without all of you, so I appreciate it. Now, I cannot wait for Monday's video. We're going to do a part 2 of today. So I have even more ideas and a few more papers that Connie sent me. So we are going to continue on with part 2. And this weekend, I am going to tackle my yard. I have been blessed with just a bit of nice weather, hopefully. And the city of Appleton has extended the waste pickup by 1 week. So I am going to get out there and do all the things, yard work, and then try to clean up my craft room a bit. So that I can get going right away on Monday. So you guys have yourselves a great weekend, and we will see you then. Bye. Bye.